Milkweed, chapter 35. Before I begin reading, we're heading towards the point in time when the Germans are getting ready to liquidate or empty the ghetto. The Jews do not know it yet, though. Chapter 35. What's that? Janina asked. She went to the window and the twins ran after her. We were in the room, it was day, and there were voices outside the window. I joined the others. In the courtyard below, children were singing. They sounded more like crows than like children. And when they sensed we were watching from above, they turned their faces up to us, all rags and eyes, and they sang. Why are they singing? I said. Mr. Milgram's voice came over my shoulder. They are hungry. They are singing for food. We have no food. This was true. When Janina and I returned from heaven each night, she was going out with me again. We dropped something through the window of Dr. Korchek's orphanage, and we brought the rest straight home, and we ate it at once. Come away from the window, children, said Mr. Milgram. The singing in the courtyard went on for a while, and then it went away. Side note, he told them to come from the window because by standing there, he's giving the children hope. The flies were always singing. The days were warm and the bodies were cold, and the flies were singing and drinking at the eyes and the boils of the children. Nobody took from the bodies under the newspapers, as there were no clothes left to take. There were no shoes, only rags. I believed I saw angels lurking behind the eyes of the living, waiting. Angels and crows passed each other, one leaving and the other coming. Every day a parade of body wagons backed up at the Gizia Street gate to the cemetery. Smugglers were hanging like sad fruits from lampposts with signs around their necks. The piper marched up and down the street, and he blew his silent flute, and he cried out, "Come to the Candy Mountain!" On Sundays, the jackboots came with their girlfriends to pinch their noses and take pictures and toss pieces of bread to us pigeons. One soldier made the others laugh because he wore a clothespin on his nose. Food was harder and harder to find, even on the heaven side of the wall. Sometimes all I could find was green bread. It's moldy. Sometimes there was nothing in garbage cans but drippings of fat in the bottoms. I had no container, so I scooped 2 handfuls, and I returned with that, and the others licked the fat right from my hands. By fat, he means grease. Even with smuggled food, Janina had gotten thinner and thinner. Her face had become as thin as a fox's. While the rest of her became smaller, her eyes grew larger. In other ways, Janina was her old self again, chattering, complaining, shadowing me everywhere. I went in everything. She shadowed me in everything, everywhere I went, in everything I did. She made me self-conscious. I hesitated to do things that always come so naturally. I stopped harassing Bufo so that Janina would stop. But it didn't work. In fact, she went even further. She became a gnat in the nose of every flop she saw. She called them names. She threw stones. She sneaked up behind them and whacked them on the backs of their knees with a metal pipe. Side note, the reason they let her get away with it is because she's so little and cute. I smacked Janina and I shouted at her, but I couldn't change her. I couldn't understand her moods, her outbursts. I mostly accepted the world as I found it, but she didn't. She smacked me back and kicked me, and in time I found my own best way to deal with her. On many days, I went off to a favorite bomb crater and I lowered myself into it, and I licked traces of fat from my fingers, and I closed my eyes, and I remembered the good old days when ladies walked from bakeries with bulging bags of bread. Side note, the reason Janina is having such a hard time right now in the Warsaw Ghetto is because you have to remember she was a very wealthy young lady. She came from a wealthy family, and she had lots of nice things and lived a life of privilege. This has been much harder on her than on Misha. Chapter 36. One minute, I was walking alone. I was heading for the bomb crater, and the next minute somebody was beside me, and I gave a yelp. Yuri! He had not been around in a long time. I hugged him, and he pushed me away. Shut up, he said. Just listen. He smacked me on the back of the head. Are you listening? Yes. Get out. Get out? He wore a blue and white armband just like mine. I'm not going to say it again. Get out. I was confused. Get out of where? Get out of the ghetto, Misha. Get out of Warsaw. Get out of everywhere. Just get out. Go and do not look back. Side note, Yuri knows something that the rest of them don't. There were no scabs and no boils on Yuri's face, and he was wearing clean clothes and shoes. A hollow-eyed, rag-draped skeleton appeared before us, and I could not tell if it was a boy or a girl, and it held out its hand. Yuri pulled a big fat pickle from his pocket. He bit off a piece and took the piece from his mouth and gave it to the hand. And we walked on. Why, Yuri, why? Deportations, he said. They're going to begin soon. They're cleaning out the ghetto. Deportations. They're going to get rid of all of you, Misha. Take you away on trains. This sounded good to me. Where? I said, Russia? Washington, America? He curled his fingers around my neck and he squeezed. I don't know. You don't want to know. Whatever you do, do not get on a train, Misha. Do not be here when the trains come. Just go, get out, run. Do not stop running. He looked at the sky. Ever. I looked at the sky with him, but nothing was there. He stared at me. Hey, I never asked you, Misha. How do you get to the other side? I told him about the 2-brick hole. He wagged his head and he almost grinned. You little turd. I knew you'd be good for something. Yuri, remember when I saw you in the Blue Camel Hotel? He bounced a knuckle off my forehead. You didn't see me anywhere. You hear me? You never saw me. You don't know me. Another knuckle. Do you understand? I nodded, but I didn't understand. I have to go now. Here. He gave me the rest of the pickle, and he stepped back, and he stared at me up and down, and he wagged his head, and he looked sad. Huh, darker than ever. He spit on his finger and rubbed my cheek. Before you go, Misha, find some water and wash your face. He reached into the rubble of bricks and he pulled out a handful of white dust. You see this? You rub it on your face, and you rub it on your hands. He washed my hands in the dust, and then they became whiter like his. You see? Before you go, he pointed to my armband, take off that thing. He grabbed my hair and shook my head till I was dizzy. Do not look at anyone. Do not stop for anything. You are no longer a Jew. You are not a gypsy. You are nobody. He slapped me in the face. Say it! I'm nobody. He let me go and he backed off. His red hair was cut so short, it was just a tinge of orange rust creeping out of his cap. He turned and walked away, and he came back, and he squeezed my neck. You tell nobody but the boys. He said, how are all the boys? Are they all right? Not Oleg, I said. Oleg is hanged. He has a sign around his neck. Yuri stared at me. They smuggle like me, but not through the hole. They smuggle like me, but not through the hole. They're too big, Yuri. Yuri looked at the sky for a long time. He closed his eyes. He looked back at me. He reached into his pocket and he handed me something. Here. He walked away for good. It was a piece of candy. The chocolate coat was melting, but I ate it. It was a buttercream with a hazelnut heart. I went straight to the boys at the butcher shop ruins, and I told them I had seen Yuri. He says we must go. Kuba laughed. Go? Go where? He said out of the ghetto, out of everywhere. He told us to run and run forever. Kuba and Faraday laughed. Why? Deportation. The boys looked at one another. What's that mean? Said Faraday. I don't know, I said to Enos, but I could tell that he did. Big Heinrich boomed. Run! I saved the pickle from Yuri, for my family, and as they chewed the pieces, I said, we gotta go. I said it in a whisper so the new people in the room would not hear. What are you talking about? Said Uncle Shepsel. Yuri says the trains are coming to take us away. He says we should run. Who is Yuri? Asked Mr. Milgram. Oh, Yuri's a friend of mine. Well, your friend is a cuckoo, said Uncle Shepsel. Why would they take you anywhere? They already have you like pigs in a pen. What else can they do to you? And I say you, he pointed to each of us, because I am no longer one of you. He licked pickle juice from his lip. I am a Lutheran, a Christian. Everybody knows I have nothing to fear. I'm only thinking of you. He jabbed his book in Mr. Milgram's face. With your Hanukkahs and your stubbornness, you! Janina pulled on her father's sleeves. Tata, I want to go away on the train, Tata. Mr. Milgram patted her head. There will be no train, Janina. Uncle Shepsel is right. There is nothing else they can do to us.